Those who went up with Zerubbabel and Joshua. In verses 1 through 21, we have a record of those faithful ones who went up from Babylon to Jerusalem with Zerubbabel and Joshua. Number 2, those who served in the days of Joachim and the priest. Verses 22 through 26 are a record of those who served in the days of Joachim the priest, of Nehemiah the governor, and of Ezra the priest, the scribe. They all were living in Jerusalem. E. The dedication of the rebuilt wall. The reconstitution also included the dedication of the rebuilt wall. 1. The people seeking the Levites from all their places. The people sought the Levites from all their places to bring them to Jerusalem in order to hold the dedication with rejoicing, thanksgiving, and singing with cymbals, harps, and lyres. The main service of the Levites was to sing in praise to God. For us today, singing hymns in the meetings is a primary need. Singing opens the heavens and brings us to the heavens. We should spend time to sing in different ways whenever we meet. 2. The priests and the Levites purifying themselves. During the dedication, the priests and the Levites purified themselves, and they also purified the people, the gates, and the wall. Everything was purified, for they would not dedicate to God anything that was not pure. Number 3. Nehemiah appointing two great companies. Nehemiah appointed two great companies to give thanks to God, to go in procession, and to stand in the house of God with him. 4. The offering of great sacrifices. They offer great sacrifices that day and rejoice with their women and children. For God had caused them to rejoice greatly, and the joy of Jerusalem was heard from afar. Today, our neighbors should know that we are singing Christians, that we are the worshippers of God. F. The appointment of the services of the priests and the Levites and the supply of their needs. The reconstitution also included the appointment of the services of the priests and the Levites and the supply of their needs. Nehemiah not only brought the serving Levites and priests into function, he also supplied their daily necessities. Before that time, no one had taken care of this matter properly. The clearance exercise on Israel as God's elect. Nehemiah chapter 30 verse 1 to 38 describes the clearance exercise on Israel as God's elect. There were many cleansings. This clearance was also part of the reconstitution of the nation of God's elect. 1. Separating all the mixed multitude from Israel according to the law. First, all the mixed multitude were separated from Israel according to the law. When the people heard the law concerning Ammonites and Moabites not entering the assembly of God forever, they separated the mixed multitude from Israel. 2. Purifying the chambers of the house of God. In verses 4 through 9, Nehemiah purified the chambers of the house of God from the evil occupancy by a relative of the priest who had been appointed over the chambers of the house of God. Eliashib, the priest, prepared for his relative Tobiah the Ammonite a large chamber in the courts of the house of God, where they had previously put the meal offering, the frankincense, and the vessels. When Nehemiah perceived the evil that Eliashib had done for Tobiah, he was grieved and would not tolerate the situation. He cast all the household utensils of Tobiah out of the chamber and commanded that it be purified. Then Nehemiah returned to the chamber the vessels of the house of God, the meal offering, and the frankincense. In this matter, there was a thorough clearance. 3. Removing the negligence in taking care of the need of the Levites. According to verses 10 through 13, Nehemiah went on to remove the negligence in taking care of the need of the Levites. He found out that the portions of the Levites had not been given to them, and he contended with the rulers regarding this. Then all Judah brought the tithe of the grain, the new wine, and the oil to the storehouses. Thus Nehemiah took care of all the daily necessities of the Levites. 4. Getting rid of the people's profaning of the holy Sabbath. Nehemiah also got rid of the people's profaning of the holy Sabbath. The Tyrians had been bringing their merchandise into Jerusalem and selling it there on the Sabbath. Nehemiah caused this profaning of the Sabbath to cease. He commanded that the gates of Jerusalem be shut before the Sabbath and not opened until after the Sabbath. Then he commanded the Levites to purify themselves and keep the gates in order to sanctify the Sabbath day. 5. Cleansing the people, and especially the priests, from the defilement of their marriages with the nations. In verses 23 through 38, the people, and especially the priests, were cleansed from the defilement of their marriages with the nations. Nehemiah required those who married women of Ashdod, Ammon, and Moab to separate themselves from their foreign wives. In this matter, he cleansed the people from everything foreign, appointing duties for the priests and the Levites, for the wood offering, and for the firstfruits. Lastly, Nehemiah appointed duties for the priests and the Levites, for the wood offering at the appointed times, and for the firstfruits. All these arrangements were reconstituting before Nehemiah's time. The situation was a mess. The duties of the priests and the Levites were not clear, and there was not a proper arrangement for the wood offering and for the offering of the firstfruits of the produce of the land every year. There surely was the need for the reconstituting accomplished by Nehemiah. In doing all these things, Nehemiah asked God to remember him and spare him according to the greatness of his loving kindness. Life Study of Nehemiah, Message 5. The leadership of Nehemiah for the reconstitution of the nation of God's elect. The leaders of the returned captivity were Zerubbabel of the royal family, Ezra of the priestly family, and Nehemiah of a common family. Among all the leaders in the history of Israel, these three were the top ones. Nehemiah was very common with no rank. There is no indication that his family had a high standing in society, and he did not have a high profession. Even though he served in the palace of the king of Persia, he was just a household servant. Although Nehemiah was a common person without any position, he was placed in a very high position, a position which involved close contact with the king. Nehemiah was a cupbearer to the king. While wine was being set before the king, Nehemiah would take up the wine and give it to him. Eventually, the king appointed this cupbearer to be the governor of Judah. Nehemiah's particular characteristics. As one of the leaders of the returned captivity, Nehemiah had some particular and special characteristics. Being a pleasant person with a proper attitude and behavior. As a cupbearer to the king, Nehemiah must have been a person who was pleasant and sweet, and who was always proper in his attitude and behavior. He was never sad in the king's presence. If Nehemiah had not been a pleasant person who fulfilled the king's request, the king would not have allowed him to continue serving as a cupbearer.